Okay, so again, thank you everyone. This is our session on how to write a strong grade or standing appeal. And it's brought to you by the two student unions at Ryerson, the RSU, and CESAR.
Yes, my name is Jose Gonzalez, and I'm one of the two advocates. I will be assisting all the full-time students, graduate and undergrad. So I work for the Ryerson Student Union. If I put in the messages my contact information in case you need to book an appointment with me. I'm working remotely. Our building is closed. So if you need to book an appointment with me, just go to the link and choose the option advocacy, and then choose a time. You can also contact me via email. My email address is just there. And yeah, so I will pass it on to Lyndon. Lyndon, and basically we both do the same job. It's just if you are a full-time student or full-time student, graduate, undergrad, contact me. If you are part-time student or continuing education, contact Lyndon. But I will pass it on to Lyndon now.
Hi, yes, I am Lyndall Musselman. I'm the Student Rights Coordinator for CESAR. CESAR stands for the Continuing Education Student Association of Ryerson. So we represent students doing part-time undergraduate degree programs at Ryerson, as well as any student who's enrolled in a Chang School course. So through the Chang School, students are members at CESAR. But maybe if folks were trying to get in touch with Jose over the past few weeks, I have been helping any student in need. Jose and I kind of support each other that way because we are actually the only two advocates for students at Ryerson. So the goal of today's workshop is to help you determine if you're going to appeal a grade from a course from fall 2020 or your academic standing, or whether you should appeal both. We're going to talk about how to solve the problem informally by talking with your instructor or the chair or director of the teaching department, or from your own program if it's a case around your academic standing. And then we're going to go over some tips and hints for writing a very strong appeal statement or letter. And we're going to go over gathering supporting documentation or evidence. And then finally, you should all just be aware that there is a hard deadline for grade and standings appeals, and it is Monday, January 25th at 4 p.m. And then just one little piece about the deadline is that if you already anticipate some barrier, or if you have some extenuating circumstances that are ongoing and you're going to be hard pressed to meet that deadline, be aware that you can ask for an extension, but you have to ask for the extension in advance of the deadline and explain your circumstances. And you might be asked to show some documentation around your case to explain why you won't be able to meet the deadline.
Why to appeal? Well, basically the grade that you receive, right? I mean, you are working on either on a grade appeal or standing appeal, and you believe that the grade that you receive doesn't reflect your knowledge, or there was really something beyond your control that impacted your final grade or your academic standing, and you believe that that's not fair, and yeah, these events, they basically you want to look at the ground, but we want to talk more for the grounds of appeals, right? Which you will be talking these kind of unforeseen circumstances, or when the university doesn't follow the policy. But that's basically is just either to correct, why to appeal, because we want to correct our grade, the specific course or courses, or we want to be dealing with your academic standing, right?
So we say this like with good intentions and with the goal of trying to support you as best possible, but we just want to let you know that sometimes, as upsetting as it might be, if you disagree with your grades or your academic standing, not everyone has valid grounds, so appealing can be tough sometimes. Um, just be aware of that and know that um, it should be a learning experience at least, because there is this expectation for students to try to resolve issues as soon as they arise in a timely manner. So if you were not kind of communicative or able to address your concerns in last semester back during the courses in question, you might be in a really tough situation with appealing. So we just have this kind of disclaimer around that. But we're going to do the best we can to try to help you out and explain how to have a strong appeal.
Gray appeal and standing appeal. So the gray appeal, basically you look at particular one course or courses, right? What happened, you want to focus on one course and course, it's more specific. With the standing appeal, right, is more like overall what happened with your academic standing, either if you are, RTW, PPW. So that's kind of what we always recommend, is that when you file, if you're a standing appeal, you have issues with your standing, just file the gray appeal. We will talk more about that. Usually, sometimes with gray appeal, I mean, you might not have, if you have an issue with a course, standing might be fine, right? You might not have necessarily issues with your standing. Or the other way around, yes, if you have issues with your academic standing, then we'll be just talking about how you can also file a gray appeal.
Why not submit both appeals? So students whose academic standing was affected by one or more final grades are really encouraged to submit both grade appeals, maybe multiple, and a standing appeal. Basically, it might seem like a kind of onerous task to file like multiple appeals, but it's a really safe approach to just cover your bases in case your grade appeals are not successful. You will then have your standing appeal in place to challenge being RTW or permanently program withdrawn. And just a sort of note around being permanently program withdrawn, that's a really kind of serious and unfortunate academic standing. So we really do encourage you to appeal being PPW, because that's something that you want to avoid having on your transcript. So yeah, definitely think about that kind of multi-pronged approach to appeals. And then usually grade appeals are considered before standing appeals. With the new policy that's in place, it's policy 168, the grade and standing appeal policy, it basically allows some flexibility. I think it says something along the lines of that grade appeals and standing appeals can be considered concurrently potentially, but it's kind of at the discretion of the decision maker. And grade appeals, if they're successful, can still change your academic standing. So just that basic premise is important to be aware of.
If you are filing a standing appeal, or even I would say in the gray appeal too, then you can. I would say standing appeal, and then let's say you are PPW, RTW, any issue with your academic standing. Then you can contact, if you want to take some courses, you won't be able to register, right? So what you need to do, you need to contact your home department and ask them to help you to register manually. You need to explain that you will file your appeal. It is likely that probably they ask you, have you filed your appeal? So if you wanna register now, and you still need time to complete your appeal, you can let them know, right? Let them know, would it be possible that, send them an email and let them know when is the day that you're planning to file your appeal, and if it's possible that they can enroll you in the specific course. Also keep in mind that if you are not successful in, let's say, your appeal, right, your academic standing, and then you are not successful in your appeal, then the university can withdraw you from the course, and then you will be able just to get your money back. But yeah, so on the other hand, if you're successful, you will be able to continue. So I was just thinking also for the courses that if you have a great appeal, and those courses they have a prerequisite. I mean, technically they can say no, but it's discretional, right? So you can just go and try, and hopefully they allow you to continue. But that one is really up to the department just to decide.
So now we're going to touch on the grounds for appeal, which are really, really important. The grounds for appeal are like your thesis if you're writing an essay. So based on Ryerson's Policy 168, the grade and standing appeal policy, there are 4 valid grounds of appeal. So there's extenuating circumstances, prejudice, procedural error, and only for grade appeals, course management. So just to clarify, course management can't be used if you're appealing your standing.
Okay, so let's gonna talk about the first ground for appeal. This is you can find it in policy 168. So now we have, which is just taking place nowadays in force starting this semester. So extenuating circumstances, I mean, previously known as a compassionate and health. So basically, if you have any occurrence where something happened that it was beyond or immediate, it's called A, B, C, and D. Let me just read it. Outside the student's immediate control, or could have not been reasonably foreseen or avoided, or significantly impacted the student ability to fulfill their academic requirements. So I take this, if something happened, right, beyond your control, can be something related about health, can be something related about family, right? Something like is really affected you and it was unforeseen. I would say the keywords here just to keep in mind is just unforeseen and beyond your control. That's why the definition now is quite broad. Before it was just either if it was health or compassionate, right? So if you have something that is compassion or health, right, that you feel like it just kind of meet this criteria, right? Which something happened beyond your control, unforeseen, then you can rely on these extenuating circumstances. And these extenuating circumstances is a ground for both. Remember, if you're filing your grade appeal or a standing appeal, this is, in my opinion, I would say is one of the most common grounds for appeal, extenuating circumstances. We'll talk about the other ones, but just keep in mind this one.
Okay, so on to prejudice grounds. This is in the case that you feel that you've been discriminated against based on one of the protected grounds of the Ontario Human Rights Code. So, for example, that's if you feel that you were discriminated based on race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, age, disability. There's many of those protected grounds. So just be aware that if you file a grade appeal or a standing appeal on prejudice grounds, there will be a investigation that is done by the Human Rights Office at Ryerson. And sometimes this can create a kind of lengthy process. So it may take some additional time for your appeal to be considered because investigations, as you could imagine, do take some time to do thoroughly. And so basically, the person that you are sort of naming your appeal as the person that you're complaining that is being discriminatory in some way, they will be contacted and there will be like a very kind of thorough investigation of things. So just be aware of that. You can always be in touch with the Human Rights Office at Ryerson to just consult with them about your situation. I think that's always a really good idea for students who have these types of concerns to just get a bit of a handle on if this is the right approach to take. Sometimes these concerns can be dealt with in informal ways. But sometimes it is very uncomfortable to talk about like discrimination. But just it's really important. So of course, like you should raise your issue, you should share it, you should stand up for yourself. So do that. Just know that there will be a kind of very thorough process triggered by this type of appeal. And I feel like I maybe should change the wording on this slide, like of the red text down at the bottom here, because I think in the new policy, so in policy 168, I don't know that the appeal is completely on hold while the investigation's underway, especially if you appeal on multiple grounds. Like there, I think is a way for an appeal to be considered if there are, like, for example, the ground of extenuating circumstance or procedural error or something. So I don't know, Jose, if you have an opinion on that, because it's a slight change based on the old policy. That the old policy was super clear that your appeal would definitely be on hold with this type of grounds triggered. Anyway, we can move on if you don't have anything else to add.
Yeah, so just gonna move on with that. If I mean, I would say if you have any issues or you would like, this is something that happened to you. I mean, we are happy just to investigate more and give you, the answer. But for now, yes, if you have questions about that, just contact us and then we will give you this. And when the new policy, I mean, there's some changes, right? So we will provide you the response. So the next ground is procedural error. So this one is, you can rely on this ground, again, one for grade appeals or for standing appeals, if you believe that the university or the instructor didn't follow any procedure or any university policy. If that's the case, you need to identify in your appeal which policy number you believe that the instructor or the university did not follow, and also the section, and then just explain, your interpretation, right? How, we're supposed to be follow, and make the reference. And again, if you are not sure about, about the policy, or you try to identify, you can just something that you can contact also Lyndall or myself, and then we will be happy just to direct you, which policy, based on the issue, right, that you just talk to us. And just one more thing, this procedural error ground and prejudice. I don't want to jump to the other slides, but this is one of the exceptions grounds for appeal that you can, if you don't introduce it at the beginning, you can introduce later on in further appeals. But we will be talking more about those later on.
Okay, on to course management. So this is, again, only valid for grade appeals. This is for you. This could be your grounds of appeal if you encountered a situation where your professor for a course deviated from the course outline, or changed the evaluation structure in a way that violated policy 166, the course management policy, which ultimately caused your academic performance to not be what it normally would, like that had a negative impact on you. So other examples of course management issues are no graded work received prior to the drop deadline. So last semester, that deadline to drop courses was very late. It was December 7th last semester, sorry. So, and like that's what policy 166 says, is that students should receive like a kind of substantial form of feedback or evaluation before the drop deadline, so you can assess how you're doing in the course. So you can make an informed decision on whether you want to drop it or not. And then finally, if there's a lack of feedback that would have helped for subsequent assignment. And then sort of as I mentioned from the top about this slide, if there was a change to the course outline that was not provided in writing, like if it was not very explicitly announced in writing to the entire class that there was going to be a change, like a change in the weight of a certain assignment, or like the elimination of an assignment or of an exam or something like that, and a change to the kind of format of your course.
What about unfair treatment, Lyndall?
Oh yeah, that's true. Here, there. Yeah, so unfair treatment or bias, if you think that there is just like a biased evaluation by your professor or treatment in a course, that is still under this grounds of appeal. And also, if you had appealed on prejudice and they did the investigation through human rights, and say, for example, if they found that there actually was no discrimination based on a human rights ground, you could continue your appeal on course management grounds, like in the sense that there may have been just a personal bias that's not technically a human rights type of bias or discrimination. Anyway, yes, so I think we can move on to the next slide here.
Yes. Okay, informal resolution. In your appeal, when you complete your appeal, you will be expected just to talk about how you try to resolve your appeal before you file your appeal. So you need, this is the steps. So for those ones, let's say university expect you that before you receive your final grade, you go on and speak with your course instructor, right? So first you speak with the course instructor. If you were sick or you have a family emergency, for example, and you were unable to write the final exam or you miss an assignment, you were expected just to communicate, with them. And then you were expected, if it was a final exam, hey, professor, I wasn't able just to write the final exam. I know I got zero, here is I was sick. Here is the documentation, right, that shows that I was sick or whatever, that this happened to me. An extenuating circumstance happened to me. And then would it be possible that I can write the final exam? Sure, not a problem, right? I mean, you try to do that. If, let's say, if you did that, and then there was never a response, then you try to escalate it with the program director. So you want to show in your grade appeal, you want to talk in your grade appeal that you make efforts, right? And either the instructor was unable or unwilling to help you, and then you escalated with the program director, and again, they was unable or unwilling to help you. And then you can include also the supporting documents, the emails or something, or even dates, right? Most likely everything, since I will assume that most students are not going to classes, so everything should be you should have a record. You will include that information that when you contact them and what was the response, and you include that in your appeal. That information is important that you mentioned, and if you weren't unable again to try to resolve the issue, I mean, if you already have the grade, let's say if it's already too late, you never contact you already have the final grade posted in RAMs, and you weren't, let's say something happened and you were unable to communicate because you were hospitalized or something, right? Then you can still just explain, I was not able to contact my course instructor because I was hospitalized from this day to this day, or this happened, this kind of extenuating circumstances happen. Just kind of make sure that either way you explain, what happened if you try to resolve the issue, if you notify the instructor, and how, just give an explanation, just consider this part.
Okay, so just on informal resolution, additionally, so just be aware that trying to take some action to resolve the issue it can save you time. You could get a professor to reconsider their evaluation on a certain assignment. And like they can change grades. Like some professors do tend to say, there's nothing I can do. I've already submitted the final grades and it's done. but it's actually not. Like, they do have the ability to go and submit the forms to update students' grades. So it just means that you want to be clear and compelling with making your case. And often at this stage in time, as we're approaching the deadline for appeals, if you didn't take much action to communicate or try to resolve the issue back last semester when the course was underway, just know that, like, you can file your appeal. Like, you just don't want to miss the deadline. Um, so try to send an email. You might not get a response because the beginning of semesters are extremely busy for everyone at the university, especially chairs or directors. So there is likelihood that you might not hear back from those folks before the deadline, but try. And then you have evidence to include in your appeal to say, oh, look, I did email and I never got a response. Yeah. So yeah, it's always good to try to be timely with taking action to try to informally resolve the issue you experience. And it is required. It's like the second text box that you need to explain in your appeal submission, in your statement or letter, as we will talk more about. So formal appeal, this is for students who have grounds, of course, and are not able to resolve their issue informally. So the first level is to the school or department, where the chair or director will be the decision maker. And if, for example, you're appealing a grade from a math course, it will be the math department, or the chair or director from the math department that will be the decision maker on your appeal. So just know that your appeal submission should include your written statement where you make your arguments about what happened, how you have grounds, what actions you took to resolve the issue, and what your remedy is. And then, of course, you really should have some supporting documentation wherever possible.
Okay, so yes, Linda was just talking about the once you start the formal appeal. So keep in mind that that appeal now, if you're undergrad, you can file your appeal online. So you can just Google appeal online Ryerson, and then there's a box you need to just put your name, your student ID, and then click enter, and then you will be able just to complete that information. You will be able to submit your statement, right? They will be asking you this. There will be these three text boxes, right? Ask you your ground for appeal, the steps the informal resolution, right? And the remedy you will be asked. Sorry, the remedy, and then you will have an opportunity to submit also your evidence. So if you are a graduate student, or you belong to the faculty of law, then you will be expected to submit your appeal via email, and you will send that to your director or your dean. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. So undergrad, everyone files online. Graduate students, everyone's filed with the graduate students and law students with the dean. And Lindo, correct me, I think Chang School file also directly via email, right?
No, every undergrad student, every undergrad course is now through the online system.
Okay. Chang School courses also, right? Like
Yes.
everyone. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's in this slide here. So new for winter 2021, the Faculty of Community Services, Faculty of Communication and Design, and CE, Continuing Education, Chang School courses, join TRSM, Faculty of Science, FEES, the Faculty of Engineering and Architectural Science, and the Faculty of Arts students in submitting online only. So this is actually a screen capture. The blue bit here is a screen capture from the website. So just look if you go, you can Google, I put this in an answer to a question a student just asked, but if you just Google Ryerson Senate appeals, the first thing that will come up will be the website where you find the access to the portal. And it's just on the right side. of the page. So you should be able to find it there. Okay, so someone has also asked a question about like, is the appeal a letter? So it used to be a letter that students would have to write because it used to be like a paper submission process. But recently, over the past couple of years, the university has changed it to be an online submission process. So it's basically a statement that you'll make that will go into 3 text boxes. Okay, so it'll be framed like kind of like 3 questions or like 3 statements that you need to respond to. And so the first one will say, basically, what is your grounds for appeal? So that's where you need to explain what went wrong, what are your grounds of appeal, and you need to say clearly that you have you're appealing on extenuating circumstances grounds or procedural error or course management or prejudice. Okay, and explain why. We're going to go into this more, by the way. And then secondly, you do need to say what actions you took to try to solve the problem. And then thirdly, you have to put forward what remedy you're requesting to solve the problem.
Okay, for the first item, right? Like what went wrong, which is basically the ground of appeal. You need to identify either if this is a gray or a standing appeal. You need to identify either one or more grounds for appeals in section and policy 168. And we were just talking about those grounds for appeal. They are the same for gray and standing appeal, with the exception that course management only applies to gray appeals. So if you first think, identify what is the ground for appeal, you can have either one or more grounds for appeal. And then keep in mind that if you introduce or you identify just one ground for appeal, later on, if you need to appeal further, you will not be able to introduce more grounds for appeal, with the exception of prejudice ground and procedural error. So make sure that you include whatever grounds you need to include it now. You don't need to, the more you can include 3 grounds and probably all of them. But even to be successful, as long as you prove one, that's good. But later on, if you say, well, I will include, there's I think my case fall under 2 grounds where I'm not able to prove, I'm only able to prove one of them. But just include them later on if you have the evidence. Later on, you can move forward, right? But keep in mind, if it's prejudice or procedural error, you can introduce those ones later on. And explain what exactly, what is this? If it's extenuating circumstance, identify. The first thing is identify 1 ground or more than 1 grounds, and then explain exactly what happened and how that relates, either how that affected to your final grade, your assignment, or your academic standing. Just explain. That should be a connection between the ground, between that happened, and your academic performance that render you unable, with a grade that doesn't really reflect your knowledge.
Yeah, I actually am just thinking about one example. Well, I'll go over this example on the slide, and then as I was answering one of the Q&A questions, I just thought of a good example to share with you all. But okay, so here's a sample of what type of case you could use to explain the actions you took in your appeal submission. So for example, you were unwell. You went and got your documentation, or, given that there's a pandemic, you may have last semester, there is a bit of an understanding that, like, for example, if you had COVID-19 or if you were dealing with symptoms related to COVID-19, such as like having cold symptoms and nausea and things like that, you may not have been expected to go get a doctor's note. However, this example kind of goes over the old model that it was in place before the pandemic, where students would have to provide some documentation of their um, illness or their medical or health concern. So say you did go and get that documentation, you provided it to the university, and nowadays students are supposed to use the online academic consideration request process. I hope some of you know about that. And sometimes it's referred to the ACR request system, academic consideration. It's a very important phrase, actually. It's basically how you request an extension or a deferral of an exam. But if you didn't get a response, that's an issue. Like say you did follow the process that exists and you didn't get any response, or it wasn't clear that you could have a deferred exam when you asked for it. And then you emailed and followed up and you still didn't get a response, that would be a really strong case for you as a student to appeal. But yeah, like you should just reflect on your case, like your circumstances that happened last semester, and just try to be as specific as possible. Sometimes it just helps from going in chronological order, just describing the events that unfolded. And be sure in your explanation to refer to your supporting documents, like refer to the emails and mention the date of the emails to be really clear on when you're telling your story. Oh, and the example that I was going to share is basically this, where a student like emailed and didn't get a response. Like, just know that the university has an obligation to reply. And if a professor is like maybe not the best type of teacher, isn't really good at communicating, and say you had questions about an assignment and you emailed and asked about it but didn't get a response, um, that that's something that you did. That's an action you took. You emailed to follow up as you should. And if you didn't get a response, that just looks terrible on your professor.
Yeah. And
Is here.
again, the actions you took, obviously, when you think about the actions you took, should be everything should be connected, right? The ground for appeal, then what happened, if it was health related or compassionate, extenuating circumstances, you will connect it to performance. And then to that performance, also the actions you took, it should be connected, right? If it was something about health, and if I was, let's say, I have a panic attack on the exam and I was not able to continue writing the exam, of course, I mean, it will make sense that I need to notify the professor right away. I will know, like, say, oh, I have a panic attack, and then, well, why you never let me know? Or if I was hospitalized, the same thing. Why you never let us know? I mean, we never heard from you. So everything should be connected. The actions you took, it's just, even if it's like there was a course management, well, why you never let me know, right? About or even an issue with policy procedural error. Why you never let me know about this? So just explain. Just keep in mind that everything should be connected. Lindor, I can answer those 3 questions if you want now. Okay, so can you appeal? Somebody's asking, can you appeal a standing that you received a year ago? Typically, if you have issues with fall, you will be addressed probably by now. But it's possible that probably you have an incomplete, and then you just receive the grade, and of course you can appeal it now. What you can keep in mind, and something that you can do in some cases, that there's no deadlines. For appeals, always, once you receive the grade or standing, you have 10 business days. If it's from fall, if it's something from the fall, you have until the 25th. If you receive something that, let's say, was a spring summer and there was an incomplete, and then you receive the grade, then you have 10 business days. And if you have issues, and I don't want to get too confusing, but if there's some courses that you want to remove, later on we will be just talking more about something that is called retroactive withdrawal. So yeah, but I will just leave it for now there, and then we will just revisit that later on in this workshop. how do we know what remedy to propose? So we will be just talking more about remedies just in the last section, and probably should just wait for that. Just for we will be talking about that, so we cannot be repetitive. And then there's information in the appeal information package. You can review that. We have a lot of information on that. And then the next question is, would I be able to get your email to contact you guys after the webinars? Of course, our email informations, I think if you scroll up in the messages, our contact information for Lyndon and myself, they are there. Also, they are available if you go to the RSU website. My email information is there, my contact information is there. And for Lyndon, you can go to CESAR.
So standing appeals, this is where you want to really explain what happened over your entire time at Ryerson from when you began in your program. You can talk about trouble that you encountered in your first year. Many students have a hard time adjusting to university courses and the university sort of lifestyle, I guess. So you're encouraged to reflect on that. And yeah, definitely, if you are in a PPW standing, permanently program withdrawn, due to failing a required course a third time, you should really talk about each attempt in that course that you took and what happened. Because it may be that you encountered certain barriers over the number of semesters that you did take that course. And think about like where you went wrong and like how you can improve things going forward. Yeah, like talk about how you're going to utilize a learning strategy and utilize all the supports that are on campus, even remotely and like that exist virtually for students to access. Um, yeah, think about like why this is a program for you. You want to demonstrate that you have a passion and like this is your career path. You can also talk about how being RTW or PPW would impact you and your kind of life goals and things like that. And basically you want to make a compelling case that you should be readmitted back into the program to be able to continue and how you will be successful and go on to graduate. Okay, so remedies. Finally, we're talking about some solutions here that you're going to put forward. So the third text box in that online submission process that we've been talking about asks you to put forward the remedy or resolution that would be appropriate in your case. So yeah, think about what's like valid given your circumstances and within university policy. Here's some examples of good remedies. So you can ask for a chance to write an exam, like the final exam, if you missed it. Or even if you did write it, maybe while you were unwell or under extreme stress, or dealing with other extenuating circumstances, you can ask for a chance to rewrite the final exam. You can ask for a regrade or a reassessment of the final paper, the term paper or big project. You can ask for a retroactive course drop, but with this remedy, I just want to flag that retroactive course drops or withdrawals are really meant for extraordinary circumstances. So there is a very kind of high bar. And if you ask for a retroactive course withdrawal through the grade appeal process, the final decision will be made by the registrar's office. So your decision maker at the departmental or school level could basically recommend or support your request for retroactive course drop. But then they kind of have to pass it over and to the registrar's office to make the final decision. And to clarify, a retroactive course drop means that you would have that course or maybe multiple courses removed from your transcript. So it'd be like you never took those courses last semester. And again, only for the really extraordinary circumstances where you were totally incapacitated or something very devastating happened and you weren't able to drop the course before end of day on December 7th, which was the drop deadline last semester. Okay, and then for standing appeals, if you're dealing with a CGPA issue, normally you'd be asking for the opportunity to return on another probationary contract to be able to continue in your program. And then bad solutions, bad remedies are just asking for an A. You can't just ask, you just can't get a passing grade. Sometimes grades at Ryerson have to be earned. So just keep that in mind so there's no grade bumps. And then if you ask for a regrade on academic work that was completed before an incident occurred. So that would be a bit inappropriate. So you want to think like if your extenuating circumstance was a car accident that happened November 29th or something like that, but you're asking for your like midterm from October to be reevaluated, that really doesn't make sense, unfortunately. So yeah, there's some examples for you. And Jose, are you back with us?
Yes, my apologies to you, Lindell, and everyone. My network dropped for any reason. So what I can continue with the next slide.
Great,
So
thank you. Welcome back. Here you
yeah,
go.
so yes, in terms of resolution, just keep in mind again, the resolution, it should be connected, right? It should just be connected to the ground that you are asking. So for example, if this is about health, extenuating circumstances, and for a family, I have a family emergency or I have something that I was unable to complete the exam, I will not be asking, the remedy that I'm asking has to be, if I'm filing a grade appeal and I was not able to write the final exam for whatever reason, I will not be asking just to be an given an A plus, right? But of course, I need to be tested. So what it makes sense, what is fair. So if I was not able just to write the final exam, so I will be asking an opportunity to write a final exam. Same thing. For some reason, I was not able. If I prove that I was not able to submit an assignment because I was hospitalized, so I will be asking just to something similar, right? Just to submit the assignment, an opportunity just to be given an assignment. So keep in mind for the grade appeals, Lindo already touched that. Give you different. You can ask multiple things. For standing, of course, this is your standing. I mean, typically the remedies you will like just go back to probation or you will like another chance or be reinstated. This is just the most common remedy. Keep in mind that when you submit your grade appeal, so you can do multiple grade appeals and you can do if you have issues with your standing appeals, you can be one standing appeal and then either one or multiple grade appeals. So that's the case. So yeah, pretty much that's it.
Okay, so we're getting there. We're almost done all of our slides. So with this piece, we just want to encourage you to be honest. Of course, it may seem obvious to some of you, but just know that you want to submit documents and statements that are true and legitimate. Otherwise, you could face some really serious penalties. Ryerson's Policy 60, the academic integrity policy, does kind of stipulate that if there's a submission of false information or misleading information provided in documents submitted to the university, such as appeals, yeah, you could be kind of prosecuted that way and investigated for academic misconduct. So just be careful and be as clear and just straightforward as you can be. It is important, and you don't want to jeopardize your academic record going forward. So just, yeah, be honest.
Just to complement, if in case that the evidence is not available, I mean, as I said, don't you can include in your appeal, you know, this, I don't have this information, or I don't have this health certificate. It will be available later on, explain, right? Or if it's, you need to just get a sensitive document, you can redact it, or you can explain, or try to use the last thing that you can do is, if let's say you have a health certificate and you need to see there was an error, a very minor error, and it was like, it was supposed to be 19 and they just kind of, the doctor wrote like 10. You just kind of use, even if you change it, alter a little bit, it can be a big problem. So it's not really worth it, right? So you, like Linda said, you don't want to jeopardize. It's better just leave it, don't touch anything, don't alter anything. If the doctor is away, just, you know, let in writing, just in your appeal, that is no, you don't have the document now, but you will be providing new documents later on. Or if there's any, let's say, if for those if there's something happening in the family and you're unable to get such as documents such as death certificates, because it's a, you know, remote community, or for any sensitive reason, I mean, try to just get information perhaps that is available to you. If there's something in the internet, or there's even a statement from a family member, sometimes it's hard just to get that documents, and now it's sensitive, right? So just make sure whatever it is, you can include it, but the most important, make sure that the document is genuine, is legitimate, and it's not worth it. Don't ever do it. They will verify all the information, and yeah, so you don't want to compromise and have issues with that. So okay, so we can go now to the next slide. That's mine, Lindo? Okay, it's, sorry, not sure what to start, the next one? Okay, not sure how to start. Okay, the best thing now that you can do is just before even you complete your appeal, even that you need to do those check boxes, try to write those points, right? Try to identify, okay, this is my ground for appeal, and then describe what is your ground for appeal, and then later on cover all these 3 points that we indicated, your ground for appeal, make the connection, what happened after you identify if it's one or more, the steps that you took to resolve, you know, the issue which is connected to the ground to appeal, and then the remedy, right? And make sure that it's a fair and reasonable remedy. And the remedies, you can write multiple remedies, can be more than one. My first option will be this, my second option will be that. The good thing, something that you need to keep in mind, is once you make everything chronological, concise, you have the option either just to do copy and paste. You can create a Word document, and then later on you can do copy and paste and complete these boxes, or you can create a letter, right? A whole statement, and you can write in the boxes, please see the attached appeal letter. And then later on, once that you upload the documents, you can upload your supporting documents and your appeal letter. Make sure that you ground it in policy 168. The appeal, it will not go forward if you don't ground it in one of those grounds that we touch for the gray and standing appeals. Make the connection between the appeal, make it strong, and include your supporting documents. Of course, must be connected, the supporting document with the ground, and get started. I mean, it's not perfect, it just takes time. Just get started, and then later on, I mean, you can review it the next day. Just keep in mind the deadline is 25th. It is impossible. It's like an essay. You cannot write everything and everything just perfect. Write one time, work on that the next day, or whenever as you have a chance. Have a family member or a friend or somebody that you feel comfortable just to proofread, right? And say, hey, you know, would you mind just to take a look here to the letter, if you're planning just to write the letter, which is your preference. Is your preference. You can just write the boxes, or you can write the statement and do the copy and paste, or the whole letter, whatever it is. Just make it clear for the people that they will be reading, right? Because The reason that I say have a friend to read it is because sometimes we write things and I know what I'm saying, but people probably don't. Like, okay, I'm not really sure what you're saying. So if you write something and everything flows, everything is concise, chances are the person that is reading your appeal letter, it will have a good grasp, yeah, and understanding what is the issue, right, with your appeal. So be reasonable, be fair, be honest. There's really nothing, to lose. The threshold for appeal, I would say, is the bar is quite. It's not high. As long as you prove, as long as you support your appeal with one of the grounds for appeal, and you explain it, you prove it, you cover those 3 points, you ask for a reasonable remedy, chances are that if you put the time, you have a chance, and there's really nothing to lose. And keep the deadline also.
Yeah. Okay. So, what happens if you're denied? So you should keep in mind that there are 3 levels of appeal. Um, at the beginning, you start at the department or school level, and then you'll get a decision letter emailed to you via your ryerson.ca email. And you should, I guess, with this new policy, you should get a decision within 10 business days, I believe is what it says. If there's some delays, they should be in touch with you and let you know. And if you haven't received something within 10 business days, so like 2 weeks, know that you can follow up about the status of your appeal. But then if you say are denied, you then have 10 business days to appeal to the faculty level, where it is usually the associate dean of the given faculty that will be the new decision maker. And then the cycle, there's a bit of a cycle that repeats here. You should again get a decision letter within 10 business days from the faculty, from the associate dean. If you're denied again, then you have the option to appeal to the Senate Appeal Committee, to the Senate level. This is a third and final level of appeal, but unfortunately, it's not guaranteed. So that means that there's a gatekeeper, basically. There's someone in the Senate office that is sort of reading through and vetting your appeal submission at the Senate level to see if you meet the standards, the threshold for the grounds. So just honestly, there has been more and more dismissal of appeals over the past couple of years. So this can happen at the Senate level. But if you do have a strong appeal submission and you meet all of the grounds and you have maybe new evidence to make a really strong case, then you can have a hearing. So there will actually be a panel of 3 people from the Senate Appeal Committee that will be the decision makers and will hear your appeal. So hearings happen virtually these days. They happen through Zoom for like grade and standing appeals. And yeah, like Jose or myself could attend the hearing to support you as your advocate, or at the Senate level, you also are allowed to bring lawyers. You could bring legal counsel, and a final like binding decision is made. After the hearing happens, you would get another formal decision letter emailed to you within, again, 10 business days. Yeah, so I think I've explained everything on this slide. Jose, is there anything on this slide that you want to touch on? Or we good?
No, everything is good. You covered everything, Linda. Yeah. Okay. So we can go to the next one. So yes, we Lyndall and I, we are the advocates, as Lyndall indicated, for CESAR and RSU. So there's really nothing, to lose that you appeal. So if you believe it is, if you believe that you meet the grounds, right, and your final mark doesn't really reflect your knowledge, or you something really happened that, if that circumstance beyond your control, it wouldn't occur at that time, you would have just been successful, and therefore, your academic standing or your grade wouldn't be impacted. Try it. Try it. It's important, just identify the ground for appeal or the grounds for appeal. I mean, you only need one ground for appeal, just to clarify, but if you have more, you can add more. Even though just even though you don't, as I indicated, you don't have perhaps all the, let's say, if I, for example, if I know that I have, I'm relying on extenuating circumstances and also on prejudice, right? So I might, since prejudice is a ground that I can introduce later, I can just say, okay, I will just rely now on extenuating circumstances, and then later on, if it doesn't work, I can introduce prejudice. But if it's a ground like a course management is for a grade appeal, and then I know that it was unfair treatment, I better just talk about extenuating circumstances and and course management, right? And then later on, if I just play with that, just if the reality is you only need one ground to be successful if you explain it and you prove it. But yeah, just something to keep in mind that if you have more than one ground for appeal, just include it. It is a stressful time, I know, for everyone, and now being at home, I know it's been challenging, right? Just to get things done, and there's a lot of things happening. There's really nothing, to lose. There will be no retaliation. I mean, both the course instructors and the program directors, they know this is your right. They cannot just retaliate against you just because you file an appeal. Most students, this is an everyday thing that they see. They just give it a try. And if you have genuine reasons, just go for it, right? And put the time now. It takes time just to identify the grounds, to explain the grounds, to explain the steps that you took to resolve the issue, to think about the remedy. I mean, put the time, because if you don't put the time and you just complete something quick, it will take you more time later on if you want to appeal. It's better just to do it now and do it right, and take the time. And if you have questions, I mean, Lyndall and I, we are here to support you, and hopefully this resolve the issue. You don't need to worry about further appeals. And yes, if also later on down the road you have other issues, we're happy to help you. There will be, if we are unable to help you, we will put you in the right track. Keep in mind, somebody asked for our contact information. Our contact information is there for myself and for Lyndall. For Lyndall, the best way to contact her is by email. With me, also can contact me via email, and also I put a link if you want to book an appointment. It's quite easy for me just to book an appointment, but send me an email and let's see what can I do. Expect delay in my response. I will be organizing group meetings, so this is something that I can probably there will be a faster response if you're comfortable with that. Keep in mind also, Lyndall mentioned what happened if you receive the appeal and if you file your appeal and you haven't has passed this 10 business day and still you haven't have a response. So with the office of the ombudsperson, you can contact them. They can follow up with that, or they can follow up with any issues you feel that if you feel that you've been treated unfairly. There are great resources. Also, if you need to just have some direction about about resources in the university, our ombudsperson is Kwame Ado. His contact information is there. He has 2 assistants, and you see Ombuds Ryerson. That's the email from the assistants from the ombudsperson. That's the extension number. I think they monitor daily. Also, another great resource is the Senate of the office. You can contact Vicky Madsen, which is correct me, Linda, the policy specialist. If you have any issue with policy, I mean, they are not advocates. They can just refer you to policy or Donabel. But if you really, I mean, they will not be able to help you with putting together your appeal. But Lyndon and I, we can help you with that. Yeah, so let me, there's a question here about, well, there's a few questions, but let me just touch a few of them. Say for a health certificate,
Oh,
if
health
it
certificate. Sorry, where is that?
is for mental illness.
Sorry.
Oh, you already talked about those ones?
Wait, hold on. Um, anyway, you've been speaking for a little while. I just wanted to chime in, and just, say, yeah, follow up with these resources if you need assistance. And if you are unable to, get, someone to look over your appeal, just, yeah, make sure you meet that deadline. So I was hoping to go in order, of responding to the questions in the Q&A. So I think,
Perfect.
like, as far as I can see here, the one that's at the top.
Just one thing, if I may, and I'm not sure if we already talked about this, but I just want to put emphasis. The deadline is strict. Is Monday 25th by 4 o'clock. So if I think probably we already mentioned this, but if it's the case that you know that you're dealing with a very challenging family issue or something that it will be hard for you to complete the appeal for whatever reason, just feel free to contact the program director. And yes, as Linda indicated earlier, unless you have the approval, you're expected in writing, right, that you have the extension, you're expected to fulfill the deadline, which is strict, Monday, 25th at 4 o'clock. So if that's the case, just give them a sense, if you need extra week or 10 days, whatever it is reasonable, explain why. Same thing. They are very good, but you just make sure that you explain that. Yes, and you explain that, Lyndon. Yeah, just wanted to put emphasis.
Yeah. Okay. So just to this question, which I think is sort of next in the queue here, from the anonymous attendee, will the professor of the class submit a counter appeal? Um, oh, and I don't know why I'm not seeing the full piece here. Just a second. Oh, there. Will I have to defend myself in a discussion? So, not at the first submission. You don't have to have a discussion. There's no hearing or like meeting about your appeal at the department or school level. Usually, there wouldn't be none. It's just decided on paper, or like, not paper nowadays, but in writing, via a decision letter that you'll get through your email. And yeah, like, you should just know that in any fair decision-making process, the other side of the story should be considered, right? So, like, you're launching the appeal, you're putting forward your perspective and your concerns. So, to be like fair and like equitable, the decision maker does need to consult with your professor, to get their perspective on things. And you'll see that that is the structure of what the decision letter will look like that you'll get. There's a template that the decision makers are supposed to use that goes like with a summary of the perspective of the appellant, which would be you, the student. And then there's a perspective of the professor or the department. And then they'll have the reasons for the decision and then the outcome. Okay, so yeah, there would only be a hearing or like a meeting at the Senate level. And sometimes there's a meeting offered by the Associate Dean of the Faculty of Community Services. They offered to meet with students that file faculty level appeals, but the professor, the instructor from the course in question for a grade appeal would not be there. It would just be like you and the decision maker, the associate dean, that might be on a phone call or a Google meeting or something like that. So I hopefully I've answered that question. Jose, do you want to take on the next one?
Sure. This is the one, do we submit an email transaction, that one?
The group assignment
We
grade is,
submit an email transaction and a health certificate as approved.
no, the one above that. Do you see that?
Okay. If
Okay.
a group assignment If a group assignment grade is low, but your portion of the assignment was correct, but the overall assignment received a low grade, would the review of my portion of the assignment be a remedy that can be considered if I only needed that mark to pass the course? Uh, it's hard. I mean, I don't know how. Just to give you, I cannot give you a clear-cut answer. There's a lot of information that I know, but typically, what the assignment. I mean, it can be that the professor will say, I will mark you as everybody gets the whole overall grade, or everybody can be graded individually. I mean, how everyone feels. Do you feel like if everybody was graded equally, and then you receive lower grade? There can be a lot of things, but I guess talk about yourself. Talk about why you believe that the grade. How you can. I mean, why? If you feel, I guess I'm just thinking now about course management and fair treatment. So if you believe that you will be graded unfairly or differently than others, then I will explain why I should receive a high grades. I mean, whatever fact that happened, I need to think about the grounds. I mean, I don't see anything here about extenuating circumstances. I mean, potentially I can look procedural error, right? Or course management, right? The professor probably also more course management, unfair treatment, or if there was the course outline, or he or she gave specific instructions about how the assignment will be graded, and they didn't follow the rubric. I will just mention, I think the rubric say this, but I didn't get this. This is what I will be looking. Lyndon, any comments?
Well, I was just gonna say potentially it could be extenuating circumstances if you can make the case that it was beyond your control and unforeseen that your class or group mates would not follow through and um, provide, like good quality submission. Because again, extenuating circumstances like has those three pieces to it. So it's something beyond your immediate control, um, that is unforeseen or you're not able to avoid. You would have to argue that you couldn't avoid um, like the low mark or the low quality of work from your group mates or something. And then, yeah, like you have to explain that it's a serious issue. So it might be a bit of a stretch, but you could think about it. I am stopping the recording now since we have finished our full presentation.